Hi guys, welcome back to my channel for another video. If you're returning, let's talk about probably the most highly requested video, which is my book list, my book collection. All of the books that have completely transformed my life. Now, am I saying that every single one of these books have entirely transformed my life? No. Some of these books kind of just planted a seed while the other ones were truly transformative. So take what you want from the video, but I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm so excited that I get to make this video today. So without further ado, let's get into the video. I kind of wanted to try and put these into categories, but they're kind of a little bit random, especially the last category. So let's call the last category random, okay? But the first category is probably my personal preference. I love reading spiritual books, whether it's about spirituality or religion. I just love reading books of that sector because I don't know, it just transforms me. It transformed my life, but it is in no particular order except for the first one. It is probably my favorite book of the entire collection that I'm about to show you, but I think all of these books are really, really beneficial. And the first sector that we're going to be starting with is the spiritual, sort of religious, a little bit more of the, the talk of enlightenment and the fact that this human experience is much more than what we think it is. So the first book is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's probably one of my favorite reads. I've read this probably over 10 times, and I know somebody might not believe me. That's fine if you don't. It doesn't change the fact that I did it. I'm just joking, but no, I'm actually not joking. I did read it over 10 times because I think this is one of those books that you really have to read more than once to really grasp what he's trying to say. When you first read it, it's quite, you're like thinking to yourself, this is actually very logical. Like, why wouldn't I already practice this? Like, he breaks it down in a very simple way. It's a quick read, which is why I've read it so many times. And actually the first book I've ever read from him was The Mastery of Love. That book absolutely blew my mind. You guys definitely need to read that book if you're somebody who's just looking for a different way to look at life. Even if you don't believe in God, or you're not a very spiritual person, or you don't believe in the universe, I truly believe that these types of books will benefit just about anybody. It makes you look at life a different way, but most importantly, I think it makes you look at yourself a different way. Specifically for people who are really looking to open up a new perspective in their life. Do not mind my cat, okay? He talks about really powerful men and women in the south of Mexico who basically practice all of these really deep meaningful things that just made life more purposeful and tried to carry it on to teach the rest of the world, and that's how these books came about. There's lots of stories in his books most of the time, especially in The Mastery of Love. There's a lot of really great stories that explain things in a way that makes you understand. I personally love books that use storytelling as a way to teach something because I feel like I'll remember it better. Like, I still remember the stories from The Mastery of Love, and they come from all different types of religions, which I think is really beautiful as well. So yeah, give this one a read if you're somebody who wants to really broaden your perspective on life and just understand yourself deeper. It's a very transformational book in my opinion. I know that it's trendy. It's quite trendy. It's been trendy within the last year, I think. I've been seeing it everywhere, but I read this actually 2.5 years ago. No, actually longer than that. I think I read this for the first time in 2021. Before we continue with the rest of today's book list, since we are already on the topic of reading, I am so excited to introduce to you guys short form. For those of you guys who ask me how I stay consistent with these types of habits, it's all about, for me, trying to maximize productivity as much as I possibly can. With the little time that I do have, I try my best to fit in everything, and of course that means kind of trying to figure out new ways to manage your time. There's a lot of books that I myself have not finished reading because I get distracted, something else catches my attention, and I don't end up finishing the book. Short form is an easier way to learn when you don't feel like you're sure about investing in the full book. So if you're not familiar with it, short form makes the world's best short guides to nonfiction books where they essentially summarize the entire book with analysis and exercises into a 10-minute read. They highlight the key points at a deep level because although they are summaries, they are very detailed summaries, so you can really get the important things out of the books that you're reading. I'm currently reading The Road Less Traveled, and the title just really intrigued me. So I started reading it and I absolutely love it. I'm actually thinking of buying the full book once I'm done reading the book that I'm reading right now. And I'm assuming that if you guys are subscribed to my channel or you just follow me, if you're into this type of content, you are somebody who's taking The Road Less Traveled as well. A lot of my books I actually lend to my girlfriends sometimes. So sometimes I don't get my books back. And so it's a great way for me to go back and really refresh my memories on the books that I really love. Any of the books I'm about to list, if it sounds interesting to you and if you're unsure if you're gonna like it and you don't know if you want to buy the full book, read the summary on short form first and then decide. I really recommend it if you're somebody who's very indecisive like me. Listen, I can spend hours at the bookstore. Everybody knows this about me, and I will not choose a book until I'm absolutely sure about it, and short form just makes that easier. So if you guys are interested, link is in the description, and let's get back into the video. Next, within this sector, we're going to be talking about the power of now / A New Earth, okay? Listen, don't look at the crusty, dusty conditions of these books. You guys have to take into consideration that I read these books like a long time ago, and I also am somebody who travels a lot with my books. Like I take them anywhere and I shove them in my purse with a bunch of other things, and you know, I know I'm starting to take much more care of my newer books. I know that these are kind of giving up, but let's talk about this book because this book was crazy. It kind of challenges you in a very powerful way. It's quite uncomfortable, actually. It gets to the root of the ego, and it talks about your subconscious mind and so many layers to the human mind that it really like messes you up a little bit. But all for good reason, because if the mind is not challenged, the mind won't change. Challenges are good. So I was really honestly super afraid to get into reading this book, and then I obviously was like, I have to challenge myself. So I went and bought the book that came after it. I don't remember what that's called. A prequel? No, that's the book that comes before, right? I don't know the terms, okay? But the first book that I ever read from him was A New Earth. I actually borrowed it from a friend because he told me how transformative it was for him. So he gave me his copy. I think this is his, I don't know. Then I went and bought The Power of Now as well because he wrote, I believe this one was the first book he wrote, and then A New Earth came right after. I really love the author. If you hear him speak, he's very present, and I've watched some of his like interviews before, or like just his seminars, and he talks very slow, like as if he's, you know, really considering what he's about to say, like the next thing he's about to say. He takes his time, which I really admire. So yeah, this one's pretty popular, but for good reason. Basically gets to the core of understanding your ego and the role that it plays in your life, and how your life will turn out based on how you choose to operate, and how much you operate from your ego. I will say that when it comes to this book, try your best to read it in a light-hearted manner, because I think for me the takeaway that I got from this was that it's meant to invoke a great sense of love in you. But I think in this book he really explains the idea that we're separate from our ego identities and that we shouldn't identify with them so heavily because it makes us suffer in the end. And in The New Earth it's quite similar, except it's called A New Earth because it's this idea that when one person becomes conscious, it spreads like wildfire. So essentially we're all on our way to creating a new earth. So I thought that this collection was really beautiful. It's completely up to you. Again, if it's not your cup of tea, I totally understand that. I've got a wide array of different sectors in the self-development genre, but those are some of my favorites for that. Next read is The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. Such a beautiful cover. I thought this book was really, really similar to either Meta-Human by Deepak Chopra. I know that that one is a really, really good book, but also The Power of Now. I think they all talk about very similar ideologies and the same type of philosophy, but they just word it very differently, and obviously they're different authors, so their writing style is very different. So I would say explore if you want to use short form, or if you just want to go to the bookstore and just like take yourself on a little date, you know, go to the bookstore, flip through a couple of these books and see which one speaks to you most. That's what I do. I just try to intuitively go with the one that I think I would enjoy reading the most. I just wanted to add this one in there as an additional option, but it is, in my opinion, very similar to The Power of Now, The New Earth, and Meta-Human by Deepak Chopra, which I don't have that copy right now because I actually borrowed that one from the library. So you have no excuses, okay? Go to the library if you don't want to spend money on books. I know books can be quite expensive, it definitely adds up. But anytime I don't want to purchase a book, I just go to the library. So that was some of my favorite reads in this sector. There's actually another book that I'm currently reading right now called The Teaching of Buddha that I really wanted to add, but me and my siblings are actually sharing the book, so all of us have like different bookmarks in the book because we're all reading it at the same time. So it's floating around. I wish I could have added in this video. I'll add a little picture here if I can, but it is a really good read. I thought it was really transformative for me. I'm not going to get too much into it because I do want to move on to the next sector, which is finance. We're going to talk about the first book, which is Girls That Invest by Simran Kaur. If you're somebody who, when it pertains to investing, just doesn't know that much about it, you're a little bit ignorant, you're not familiar with it, then this book is for you, especially if you're a girl. I read this actually last year of September, so last fall time when I was still in school. I love the fact that she tried her best to break things down in the simplest way possible. Of course, there's still terminology and there's still lingo that I don't understand. When it comes to investing, I know that it's a very complicated topic for a lot of people. It definitely was for me. There's still terms that I don't understand. I don't consider myself an expert at all. Do not ask me for advice about investing, please. She teaches you about different kinds of investing so you can kind of get to know yourself as an investor while you're reading the book. Maybe the fact that she's a woman and she's in the South Asian community might be irrelevant to some people, but for me, it was quite a powerful thing because I had never seen someone publish a book that was so, I don't know how to explain it. I just love the way that the cover is designed. I love everything about this book. Honestly, it is something that I will definitely take up reading again because I've only ever read this one once before. But I'm not gonna lie and say that I didn't reach for this book just because of the title, because I honestly did. I was like, if there's a book about investing for women, I'm obviously going to try and pick it up and see what it's about. But I thought it was a really great read. Again, there's a lot of things in there that I still don't understand. So even if you're somebody who's trying to get into finance, if you don't understand everything entirely at first, there's a reason that you're learning about it. There's a reason that learning takes so much time as well, because you're trying to really understand it and apply it to your own life. She also has a podcast called Girls That Invest if you guys want to know more about that. But on to the next read. Next, Rich Dad Poor Dad. No, don't get mad at me, because this was actually my first finance book that I ever read, and I read it this year. I know how old this book is, and I know how long it's been around for. I know how many people used to rave about it and wherever it is. Some people have mixed opinions about it from what I know, but I personally thought it was really I'm just over here dropping everything. Okay. Anyways, from what I know, like my experience with it is I thought it was really educational. I thought it was really good. This was the first time I was exposed to like investing and real estate for the first time. Like this is when I really started to become knowledgeable about it. It talks a lot about becoming financially literate and the fact that it's so important for your well-being to understand how to use money and where to put it. I find that when I'm reading finance books, I'm actually more likely to save, and it's because I'm reading about the topic of money and just talking about it and opening yourself up to it. Because this is the thing, when it comes to money, it's not supposed to be talked about at the dinner table. Oh, you're not supposed to talk about money, or like it's rude to ask about money and whatever it is, like just, and like the idea of money is just so uncomfortable for a lot of people. It was definitely for me, and I know that a lot of people share the same experience. And so I think this book was the first time that I was like, he talks about money so comfortably, and I really want to get comfortable learning about money and talking about money and just making it a normal thing for me to think about saving and investing, because it is really important. It teaches a more practical way of understanding money, and he also leans into the psychology of it and essentially making your money work for you instead of the other way around. I just actually finished the psychology of money, but honestly I didn't want to add it to the video because I don't exactly know how I feel about it. I thought it was a pretty good read for the most part, but I'm also a little bit of a picky reader. I definitely, you know, want to make sure that the book sits right with me. So the Psychology of Money, overall, great read. But for me personally, I don't think it was my favorite financial literacy book. But again, it's each to their own. Maybe I'll feel different about it in a week when I've fully processed the information, because I literally just finished reading it. But anyways, let's move on to the next category. This is kind of my more random category, just books that I think really transformed my life. Let's talk about the first one, which is Attached. Oof. This one is an uncomfortable one, especially if you're in a relationship. I'm just gonna warn you. If you watch this type of content often, maybe you are or maybe you're not familiar with attachment styles. I read this book a while back, but I found it actually very helpful for me because it makes you take a certain level of accountability that's quite uncomfortable. In relationships, it's easy to be like, oh, he did this or she did this. This book actually makes you more aware of the role that you play in the situation, because it takes two to tango, babe. Essentially, there are three attachment styles. The first one is anxious, the second one is avoidant, and the third one is secure. And the entire world population makes up at least one of the three. The one that you should strive to be is a secure attachment style, but some people don't have the luxury of that because it's all depending on your upbringing and the experiences that you've had in your life. It teaches you how to select a mate that suits your attachment style and how to become a secure person yourself, which is not an easy thing to do. Take it from me. For me, it's actually more of a self-awareness book rather than a relationship book, because I think it made me more aware of myself rather than the role I play in a relationship. Like, of course, that's important too, and the book makes that really obvious. It puts that in your face, but it also made me hyper aware of the role that I play in my relationships. It's not just about romantic relationships, it's about the relationship you might have with your parents, your siblings, it could be whoever. Again, I think that it's super helpful in any aspect of life. Even if you're not in a relationship, I really recommend reading it, especially if you're just jumping into a relationship. Read this book, okay? Emotional Intelligence 2.0. I already touched on this book. I already raved about it in another video of mine where I talked fully about emotional intelligence. Ultimately, it's a very practical and short guide to becoming self-aware, socially aware. It's very logical and straight to the point, so I think it's for a very specific type of person. I really liked it, and I don't consider myself that logical, because sometimes I don't want to like, sometimes it's too much to read the beginning of the book and blah blah blah. Like, I like books that kind of just get straight to the point, and I think most of these books are actually under that same category. I'm not going to touch too much on that one because I did talk about it in a previous video, but that is a really good read for anybody who's super like, you just want to understand your emotions and you kind of want to understand where they come from too. Welcome Home by Najwa Zebian is probably one of the most heartfelt and wholesome books that I've ever read before. It contains a little bit of poetry because the author is a professional poet, but the book talks a lot about unworthiness wounds wounds and abandonment wounds, build a better relationship with yourself and accept yourself exactly the way that you are. I think it's really beautiful actually. The first time I read it, a high school teacher actually lent it to me in my senior year, and when he lent it to me, I immediately went and got my own copy because I thought it was such a good read. It was absolutely so needed in the time that it came to me, and I think that that can be said about any book. Like, it's just meant to fall into my hands in that time, and suddenly it just tells me exactly what I need to do. It's very deep and it allows you to become more comfortable with uncomfortable emotions, but it is very, very deep. It gets to kind of the root of who you are, your mind, your body, your soul. I think it's a really great read. So if you guys are interested, that is an option for you as well. Something that's a little bit similar that is actually quite popular now is The Mountain Is You by Brianna Weiss, or Brianna West. I don't want to say it wrong. That's why I haven't been saying the names of any of these authors because I don't want to butcher it, but if you guys look it up, you'll be able to see. That one I would compare to Welcome Home because I think both of them talk a lot about self-abandonment, basically abandoning yourself and when you learn to abandon yourself and why you learn to abandon yourself, how you can get out of those people-pleasing tendencies and just not really showing up for yourself in the way that you know you want to. That copy is actually with one of my sister's friends right now. We lend a lot of our books. My sister and I lend our books to just about every one of our friends. It's crazy, so I try to give you guys the books that I have here, but luckily I have all of my favorite books still with me because I was able to get some of the copies back. But that is pretty much for all of my books right now. Listen, I know that this is irrelevant and this has nothing to do with anything, but I'm actually currently reading The Great Gatsby. I signed it out at my local library, and this is not the first edition, obviously. The first edition goes for like $150,000. I'm being so serious. You guys can search it up if you don't believe me. Eventually I will own the first edition, okay? But not right now. I have to read this paperback. But it's such a good read because I love the movie so much, and I also I've heard a lot of really interesting things about the author. So that's what I'm reading right now, but that's irrelevant. But I still wanted to tell you guys. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed all of these book reads. If you guys do end up reading any of these books or trying out short form, please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to know what you guys think about this collection. I know some of you guys might think it's a little bit basic, but for me, these are the books that truly transformed my life and made me just think about myself and about life in a different way. Also, I just want to make a side note and say that a lot of you guys DM me on my Instagram, and as much as I'm on there sometimes, I'm not on there all the time. So if I don't reply, that's why. But if you guys really want to ask any questions, concerns, anything, just email me. The link is in my bio, actually, in my YouTube bio, to my email, so you guys can reach out to me through there if you really have any questions about anything, and I would love to get back to you guys on there. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I will see you guys in the next one.